Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science, now available for pre-order. Please do. I'm Joy Moore, here with my co-author Ken Anderson, and today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. Hey, Kent.
Hey, Joy. How's it going? Oh, you held out. You made me go. Ah. If you've been following this, you realize there's a new game afoot.
How is it going? How's your snow apocalypse?
Oh, man, it's getting really old. I'll tell you, this has been some double whammy. And the worst part is that the 22 inches or 23 inches that we got about a few weeks ago started to melt and then really got cold. So it got, turned into Jersey barriers basically all around. And then we got another 13, 14 inches on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to move it, it's nearly impossible if you didn't
You,
clear the first batch. And then if you go to walk on the now substantial hills of snow, it's kind of anxiety provoking because it's like snow quicksand.
you don't
It's
know how
like
far you're going to drop?
you don't know how far you're going to drop. You usually it can be even a 2 or 3 step process, and then you don't know if you're because because we have a dog and sometimes she just wants to play out in the snow, so I'll just slip on some boots and it's like, oh, are these boots going to come out with my foot when
I
I
was
pull
just gonna
up?
say that one of my daughters lost a boot in a hill of snow when she was little, and we didn't find it till spring. It's like it's in there, but
Yeah.
not
So
much.
thanks for asking. It's no fun, that's for sure. But you've got a better weather situation there and you're going to baseball games.
Yes, I've already been to two baseball games. It's so great. Yeah, it's the William and Mary baseball team. We got season tickets right behind home plate, and it's
It's a
great.
study in contrast, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's and you know what? And I told you the other night it was cold and I was bored and I was like, you know what? I don't have to stay here.
I've got season tickets. I'll
I
come
can
back when
see
it's warm and I'm interested.
my seat will still be here. But yeah, it's fun to see the kids getting out and and just kind of that shift everything the seasons shift earlier down here.
Yeah,
For better or for
absolutely.
worse. We get spring earlier, but we get summer worse. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But you've also found time to binge watch, I understand.
Yeah, so I've gotten into The Pit, and I
Mm-hmm.
know it's been one of the most talked about medical shows in the last few years. And I got partway through the first season and then I dropped it, and then I picked it up over the weekend and really started to get back into it. And so if you're not familiar with the show, it's there was some controversy when they were putting it out. So it's on HBO Max and it's
Mm-hmm.
starring Noah Wiley, who was the one of the main stars of ER.
Right. He was a resident back then, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a very similar premise. It's following people in the ER from the point of view of the clinicians.
Right.
Um, but there was Michael Crichton and his people were not happy about this because he's like, they're like, you just ripped us off and you got to pay us royalties. I don't know what happened from that.
Right. Right. Right.
But this show has kind of gone on to become bigger than something else because it was from the perspective of post-pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
all the frontline workers who went through the pandemic. And it's called The Pit because it's in Pittsburgh. It's in a,
Right.
inner city hospital, much like
Right.
ER.
Mm-hmm.
But they've done a really good job of weaving in all of today's issues that I think anybody can relate to, whether you're a patient or a clinician or if you're paying attention at all to what's going on in healthcare. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
taken it like to today
Mm-hmm.
in a really human but also critical way. And they do have some opinions on things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I noticed, I watched, there was a episode in the middle of season two where they get a new attending and she wants to modernize the ER.
Hmm.
So she comes in with an AI note taker for
Mm.
doing the charts and some other kind of things to help kind of move things along using data driven stuff, right? And
Right, right,
here
right,
they
right.
are in the middle of this like chaotic ER.
Hmm.
And it was so pitch perfect because they tried it out, and the first time they used it, it misinterpreted one of the drugs that they
Hmm.
had said to something else that was totally different. And she
Hmm.
just wrote it off, and she's like, well, it's like whatever, 95% of the time it's accurate. So
Right,
that's just a rounding error.
right.
And
Okay.
then later, another time, uh, one of the interns uses it to catch up on her charts, and the patient got rejected from the ER because it hallucinated some of the patient's history to the
Mm.
point where the surgeon came down from upstairs and was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Urology is not neurology. This patient never had appendicitis.
Right,
And but it was the same thing. It's like, well, it's just a rounding error. Sometimes
right.
it's wrong.
It's a learning thing.
It's going to give you 30% more, productivity, but then you have to proofread everything.
Right, right.
So there's a lot of good themes like that in there, and so I really recommend
And
it.
that does jive with reality. I've talked to the doctors I've talked to. They're just like, they're
Yeah.
using it because it's a dictum from on high, and some authority figure has told them that they have to use it, whether it's out of the bureaucracy or like in this case, an attending, and then they find that using it is causes more work, causes, review, make because it makes mistakes. They
Hmm.
can't trust it. And yeah, so it sounds like you said, pitch perfect.
Hmm. And then I also, I don't know if we've talked about Dr. Mike on this podcast before,
I
but
can't remember.
so Dr. Mike is probably the biggest YouTube science health communicator. He's had his YouTube channel since 2017. He's young, he's smart, but he really dove into using YouTube as a platform to talk about what's going on in health misinformation. So he's kind of he's kind of a rock star, but
Hmm.
he does some really good stuff. And he's also done those Jubilee debates
Oh
where
yeah.
they put somebody in the middle and then have 20 skeptics, try to convince him that, anti-vax is a reasonable way to think and things like
Right.
that. So he's really out there doing a lot of, I think, the good work. I don't know. I'm not qualified to say if whether everything he's saying is correct, but he seems to be coming from a place of good intent, and
Hmm.
he gets some really great guests on.
Yeah.
And then he was also at the big Stat Summit conference in October,
Hmm.
which really caught my eye because he used that platform to call out the medical societies for not communicating and using social media in the way that they could.
Hmm.
And so he really kind of stuck his neck out about that. So,
Yep.
but you can also watch The Pit alongside Dr. Mike, who does the fact check, where he goes through the episode and says, "Oh, I wouldn't have ordered that test," or "That was exactly the right test,"
Hmm.
or he pauses about different things that relate to what's happening today and gives
Right.
some commentary there. So
Yeah.
check it
Well,
out if you want to
yeah.
hang out with Dr. Mike and watch The Pit or watch it by yourself.
Well, it's interesting too because I would bet that the producers and showrunners of the pit have medical experts on hand who do advise them to ensure that the script is, more or less accurate
That's
to how they would operate. And you have, so it's interesting to think that you have a fictional dramatic portrayal of medicine that probably is more factually accurate than some of the things coming out of the US government currently,
yeah.
or even out of the scientific literature currently.
That's right. And I should mention that I think he and a couple of other clinician influencers do have a relationship with the show.
Hmm.
And they had he had Noah Wiley on a long 2, 3 hour, episode of his podcast. So they are working together
Yeah.
in a way that I think is really interesting and going totally outside, like you said, the establishment.
Yeah, but doing it better than, I mean, the current establishment is so messed up. And this is what we want to talk about today is kind of how the insurgents have become incumbents and in some ways, and how the incumbents in other senses are not using insurgents correctly. So
Hmm.
we're going to move on and we're going to talk about insurgents versus incumbents. All right, so we're going to talk about insurgents versus incumbents. So the last 25 years in scientific publishing has been largely about privileging technology-backed insurgents, technology-backed business models, technology-inspired philosophies and belief systems, theories about information, and that has, now those insurgents are the incumbents, right?
Hmm.
Now Elsevier is the largest open access publisher
Yep.
on the planet. Things like that. So, you know, natural science empowered by digital tools flipped to digital science at the expense of natural science in a way, because now those same channels are filled with questionable claims, things that are being used to support some other uh, things like, I wrote about colostrum powder, or
Hmm.
what's the other one? I can't remember them because there's so many of them.
The AG1,
AG1, and there's the
the peptides,
peptides,
the
and I mean, there's just such a long list of all these strange things that the literature's been pumped full of, basically claims steroids,
hmm
and so, but
literally
that's
steroids. Yeah.
yeah, and literally some steroids. But that led us to the point now where the incumbents in the U.S. scientific infrastructure were the former insurgents.
hmm Yeah, when they started 25, 30 years ago, it was let's see what the internet can do. Let's hook up our scientific publishing ecosystem to technology tools and infrastructure and pipelines and a system of tubes that can get information from one place to the other place faster with less friction. And it's going to serve everyone all over the world, and it's going to be great. And then it's slowly morphed to the opposite, where it's not the digital supporting the science, it's the science feeding the digital
Hmm.
machine.
Right. And the science has had to expand its definition to increase volume to a point where you could have the kind of digital players at hand. But we also have the automated box of confusion, all the other things that contribute to all of this. But I think what we wanted to talk about is how there's now kind of a group, there's bad insurgents. Just because you're an insurgent doesn't mean you're bad or good. And
Hmm.
just because you're establishment or an incumbent doesn't mean you're bad or good. But there are now some good insurgents that some of the incumbents are brushing off, which is a very confusing situation. And then you have bad insurgents who have become what I would call illegitimate incumbents. And we need to talk about them too. So it's a strangely mixed up situation, and it's kind of confusing. But
Hmm.
the way I wrote it is disruption is so embedded now that normies are insurgents. Like just normal scientists, normal people trying
Yeah,
to
we're
earn a
just
PhD or figure things out, or the doctors trying to keep kids safe from diseases. They're now having to act like insurgents,
they're
and
gonna have
it's
to like, yeah, go fighting in the streets just to do what they're trying to do
just to
in
be
a
normal. Yeah,
yeah.
and so yeah, so I mean, we've got a whole list of of the bad insurgents are, tend to be, in my mind at least, captured by a lot of the Maha movement,
Hmm.
Macquarie and Bhattacharya and RFK Jr. And today Casey Means is up for her, Senate confirmation hearing, and she's as she's in the same school as those people. She's not a serious clinician, and she's not qualified for the job, but she's there because not because of qualification, but because of connection. So,
Well, no, she's there because she's qualified to not do what the incumbents do.
right.
That's what all these people have in common. They've either um, never been practicing physicians, or they've dropped out because they've had financial interests elsewhere
Mm-hmm.
that makes them more aligned with the grift.
Mm-hmm.
And she and her brother just fit straight in there. And
Yep.
she's using this. I went to Stanford, but didn't feel like being a doctor, like so many of them do.
Right.
That is her.
Mm-hmm. Her
That's her
qualification.
qualification. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
She's a
she's,
dropout.
yeah, somebody else was talking about this the other day. I can't remember who. It's like you have all the, I think it was the conspirituality guys. It's you've got the pedigree, but you don't have the responsibility of being
Mm-hmm.
a doctor
Right.
and and um and following all the norms and
Right. And this
Hippocratic
is actually a
oath.
playbook that I remember going back to. Um, there was a drug compendium that was on the Palm Pilot back in the late 1990s.
Hippocrates.
Hippocrates, and that was
Hmm.
headed up by the same kind of dropout doctors at the time too.
Yeah.
And so it's an old playbook, but now they're being instead of just kind of circling around the commercial boundaries of the space, they're being placed at the center of the regulatory environment. So they
Hmm.
are becoming the new incumbents, right?
They're at the center of the regulatory environment that they are systematically deregulating
Right.
for
And
things that are
dismantling.
important, but opening it up for things, things that are important like vaccines,
Hmm.
but broadening the scope for things like repurposed drugs and compounded drugs and the difference between,
Vaccine lawsuits.
yes, all of that.
Yeah. So now you need some good insurgents,
Hmm.
right?
And
And
we have a few.
we have a few very good ones.
Hmm.
So we have Colette Delawala from Stand Up for Science. We
Hmm.
have Beth Jacobs from Defending Public Health, and a whole bunch of people kind of associated with those two initiatives. And I think, one of the things that it seems that the good insurgents are trying to do is they're trying to form alliances with incumbents that that you would assume reasonably if you were in their position would be very open to those kinds of offers, right? To let's
Yeah.
join us. We're charged up. We're ready to go. And all we need is just maybe a little bit of money or a little bit of you come stand behind the table with us, to hand out some flyers, put something on your website, add some links, write an editorial, do something.
Hmm.
And they don't seem to be getting it, which is a
Well, and
little
and
odd.
so it might be, and I know we've mentioned them a few times and we've written about them a bunch, but it might be worth taking a pause
Hmm.
to talk about what their activities actually are.
Okay.
So, Stand Up for Science, led by Colette Delawala, is really focused on, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
is really focused on legislation around funding and making sure that the funding for basic science is preserved. And so she's spending a lot of time on Capitol Hill. She's going from office to office to office, meeting with every legislator
Now, don't
to
they
make
also
the
want to get
case.
rid of RFK Jr.?
And they want to get rid of RFK Jr. So
Yeah.
there's the grassroots, your people don't like what's going on.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you because we hear from them.
Hmm.
I called in and I spoke to my representative and I told him I didn't like it and that went into her database. So she's doing that, and then she's then also doing you know, the legal action of, calling for impeachment.
Hmm. Yep.
And then Defending Public Health, Beth Jacobs' organization, is also involved with um, legal fights
Yep.
to um, and I don't know exactly which ones they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely impeachment. for RFK Jr.
Yeah, and I think just
And
advocacy for,
protecting and advocacy
and
for.
informing people about, things that are changing, why they shouldn't be allowed to. I think it's a little more, signing on to various legislative initiatives, pushing various reforms, calling out various things, and
Hmm.
rallying people and giving people a kind of a nexus for activity, so they don't just disperse it, that they can all kind of bring it all together and under an umbrella. And I love Colette's, call to action, which is, all right, dorks, you know, it's time to go. Let's go,
Hmm.
dorks. But the confusing bit of all this, and kind of what got us into this discussion of incumbents versus insurgents, is there's been a little bit of a beef in the press between Holden Thorpe of AAAS and Colette, and it's confusing to me
Hmm.
for a number of reasons. I mean, from a why Holden is tangled up in it at all as the editor of a journal.
Hmm.
I don't understand. I think that that's, maybe a little bit of, a lane shift that I wouldn't advise. A lot of editors I've worked with, I've talked with them about, quote unquote, the bully pulpit they might have,
Hmm.
and they've just reflexively been loath to use it, and I think wisely, because they realize that it can compromise the perception of them as an unbiased evaluator of scientific claims and a member of the community who doesn't have a position on anything in particular other than quality science. And because it also can get you into a real mess real quick. It's
Yeah,
like the snow drifts around here. All of a sudden, you think you're stepping on a nice white pile of snow, and pretty soon you're hip deep in 3 layers of snow, and your boots coming off.
exactly. No, and
Quicksand.
I totally get it, and that's why I think a lot of the big societies have been, you know, over the years, there've been some, little jibs and jabs here and there. But for the most part, they're there to A, support their members, and their members are their constituents. So in a way, they are political,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
because their members are going to have different needs and wants.
Yeah, they have lobbying arms typically that are working on the Hill or doing things,
Yeah.
in that regard, and so does AAAS for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is that they don't, for the most part, when you're talking about journal editors, their job is to evaluate the content that's coming into their journals, from basic research to opinions.
Hmm.
So they are reflecting the content that is being submitted to them
Hmm.
by outside submitters, whether they're scientists or clinicians, or in some cases, policymakers.
Hmm.
So they're the arbiters of what is going into this journal for this community. And so for an editor of a journal to take positions is not the same as the editorial board of the New York Times, say.
Right.
It's
Or the executive director or
or the
whatever.
president.
But
So like
yeah,
we've seen more from the president, of
of
the
the AAP.
AMA of
Right.
and the AAP than we have seen of the editors of the journals,
Right, which
and
is
that
typically
is appropriate. Yeah.
how it goes. And just to back up, since I guess this all really came to a head. I guess there was a biophysical meeting out in California, maybe. It looked like warm weather.
Hmm.
I noticed that those things these days, and I guess Holden gave a presentation where he was kind of saying, well, we have to play inside baseball, and you're playing outside, stand up for science. And we that there was a little bit of a, and we can't do both at once, and basically, and that there was, I guess, taken, and I can see how, as a condescending tone toward the stand up for science people. where it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, you're doing this kind of rabble rousing, but we're the
Yeah.
ones being effective because we're working behind the scenes to make sure that funding is maintained. And, so you
Yeah,
keep out there and, and
it, it,
that's
it's
nice.
it's more complicated than you think, little Missy, is the way it came
Right.
across. Yeah.
Right. And so, and, we've talked with Colette,
Hmm.
just to full disclosure, and she's sensational. She's everything you would imagine. But she's either earning or just earned her PhD.
Hmm.
I think she's got a small
She's
child. I
defending.
think
Hmm.
she's a busy, driven, super smart person and really organized. And her whole website is great. I mean, like you said, you go there and you can contact your representatives like in a GIF.
1 minute.
And
Yeah.
yeah, 1 minute, and you're got emails sent to them and all this stuff. So she took umbrage at this, and it's kind of interesting to watch on Blue Sky and other places. People are like, "Uh-oh, Holden, you really
Hmm.
stepped in it." So she wrote a blog post and then did a kind of a thread on social media based on that blog post. But basically, she's saying you can do both at once. You can walk and chew gum. You can work inside and outside, and we're doing both, right? They've held over 100 meetings with Congress. They've held closed door briefings, policy summits, supporting legislation. They're also creating these rallies and all of that. And then her main point is they haven't gotten any money from any incumbent group to
Hmm.
help them. And this is where it really got confusing for me because if you really want to deal with this administration and their approach to science, they are unencumbered, right?
Hmm.
They see RFK and Bhattacharya and Macquarie and maybe Means at some point. Anyhow, this whole cadre of people, they see no impediments. Your rules, your norms, your panels, your recommendations groups, your experts, there's nothing. It's just whatever they think and whatever they want. And now they've even proposed where one study can be all they need to make an entire policy decision. And that's that's how unencumbered they are. And then the
Hmm.
incumbents over here want to have be as encumbered as they have always been. And they aren't willing to ally with an unencumbered, fresh start, super smart, tech savvy, well organized group that can, that make, I mean, the sum is greater, the total is greater than the sum of its parts if those two ally, right?
Yeah.
And I
Well,
just
you
do
and you
not
don't
get it
have
strategically.
you don't have to take credit, public credit for funding the militia.
Right.
And that's what, all of these organizations have endowments. They give grants.
Hmm.
They have money that they've been investing in their real estate. I mean, they could probably rent out a wing and give
Right.
Colette enough money to to fight the good fight,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So they don't have to sign on to the letter of everything.
Well, they could even, I
But
mean, there's even in-kind support, right? I
yeah.
mean, again, when there are things going on in DC, show up and give some you know, tables to them to,
Hmm.
you've got extra tables
Well,
and
I mean,
chairs,
and
or give
they
them, let them use your auditorium
that's true. Yeah.
or write something in favor of them or
Are
supporting them or add their logo to your website. There's just so many ways
but
to make alliances here.
is it like the same thing with the universities that they're afraid that they're going to lose their tax status out of retribution, things like
That's
that? Like,
yeah, but this is the problem. If you're going to fight with one hand tied behind your back from people who not only will not fight by the Marquis de Queensberry rules or whatever they are, but
yeah.
will kick and gouge and choke and do whatever they need to get whatever they want. Don't fight with one arm tied behind your back. That's what the incumbents are
Hmm.
doing. And
Yeah.
I don't get it. I just do not get it. And the fact that there's, you know, um, I don't understand why an editor would get involved. I don't understand why there wouldn't be just total glowing support. of what Stand Up for Science or Defending Public Health or any of these other groups is doing.
Hmm.
I just don't understand it. So, but,
But there's
so,
also what's happening at the same time
hmm
is this shift towards tech-driven AI systems that a lot of the incumbents and some of their individual, members, some very senior brand name physicians are focusing more on AI,
hmm
on new tech products. And that just feels to me like such a bait and switch. So you have Elon Musk come in, Doge the crap out of USAID. We've
right.
got all the cuts to NIH, and
hmm
yet the people who have been around forever are gravitating towards endorsing these AI products rather than engaging in
Well,
what's
we're back
happening on
to
the ground.
we're back to the first game, right? Which
Yeah,
is let's adopt tech-centric inspiration as our way out of this.
yeah.
And that was the mistake we made 25 years ago, is that tech has the wrong incentives. It
Hmm.
has the wrong constitution for science. It's not really geared to help it much. And, there's, email is probably the best pro-science invention that tech made. And the PDF, those were
Yeah.
really good. But,
Well, and 25 years ago, to be sure, we didn't have a problem. We had an
right,
opportunity.
right,
And now
right.
we have a problem that
Yes.
is
It was a very
triple,
good point.
double worse.
Yeah, so
And
now we need insurgents to solve that problem, right?
right.
But to your point, these people who are now just windmilling their arms about tech and AI and all of this, and they're not helping to solve any problem. They're adding to more problems because that's about extracting information from people without, proper pay or citation. It's not using the information in a reliable way. It's, there's
It's
just
like,
so many problems. It's centralized power, it's centralized money, it's big money, it's, huge for-profit organizations. And to have, some of these physicians shilling for them,
hmm.
it's just so, it's not, read the room, people. It's not the time to be doing that, you know?
Yeah, Bob Wachter selling his book
hmm
and endorsing open evidence because he thinks it's smarter than him,
Right.
that's okay. That's fine.
hmm
But Tom Friedman
hmm
is another one who's been at this for a very long time, and he's got a good reputation for doing good things, and he's got a bad reputation for doing some other things.
hmm
But for him to be endorsing open evidence as an opportunity to help people in Rwanda
hmm
while he's backed by what, six, seven, eight different tech companies, Silicon Valley bankers,
Right. And the ones
Welcome
that
Trust,
always set off alarms with us.
they're all the same people,
Right.
and endorsing open evidence for U.S. physicians when we know for a fact that it is not good, but then extending it to, well, now we're going to help people in Africa.
Well, and worse, what they're doing is, sounds like they're going to use those Rwandan physicians for training,
Yeah.
to train up the model so that it can be, for whatever reason. But I
Yeah,
bet it's not paid, and I bet it's
no,
not like
it's
they're going to
extractive.
ultimately get, yeah, it's more extractive, colonialist information, practices by big tech, which again, technology tends to centralize things. And so they're just centralizing all this stuff into US tech, and he's playing along with it. So, Tom Frieden, just stop it. Stop it. Bob Wachter, stop it. You guys, it's this, and you and I saw this for a long time. Older physicians want to remain relevant, and they think the way to do that is to embrace what they perceive the youngsters are doing. And they
Hmm.
don't realize that when you get to a certain point, I think my take on it as a former young person was that I always respected the older people who acted with the wisdom that you would hope you would acquire with age,
Hmm.
and not with the kind of show pony antics that these people are acting with. And so I think whatever we say, I get the sense from the young people in my life that that's true. They
Hmm.
respect the fact that there are people in this world who have been here a long time and can put things together that they can't quite comprehend as well or put into perspective as well. So they're looking for that kind of, wisdom from people around them. And these people, I think, are kind of abdicating that role. They should be wiser
Well, but
leaders than that.
they've also been given platforms that didn't used to exist. They can
Hmm.
make money, they can build audiences on Substack.
Hmm.
They can publish with Skyhorse Publishing. They can invest in a supplement company. They can endorse things on podcasts. And
Hmm.
so the definition of what an elder statesperson is has changed as part of what it means to be a successful influencer
Well, but
today.
so I'm gonna question whether it's those things, because let's go back to Dr. Mike, right?
Okay. Hmm.
He strikes me as like really young.
Oh,
Like
he's super young. Yeah.
yeah, he's a really young guy, and
Hmm.
he's probably gonna look young far longer than he's like the Paul Rudd of
Yes, he is.
of influencers. I think he's gonna look young for a long time. He's got that kind of
Hmm.
vibe about him, but he's doing the right thing,
Hmm.
right? He's the right kind. He's showing more wisdom at his age because he's got the right boundaries of, using his knowledge for the right things. Same with Colette, right? She's
Hmm.
young, super young, but she's also got a certain core wisdom about it. So it's just an interesting, like the incumbents aren't acting, the insurgents are acting wiser. The new good insurgents like Colette and Dr. Mike and other people like that are acting wiser than the incumbents, who are acting a little bit corrupted and desperate.
Hmm. Yeah, and to be sure, they're using the same tech platforms. But it's just the fact that the older ones have jumped onto YouTube and
Oh
Substack
yeah.
and you know and it's just it's kind of sad.
It is. It is. It's like, come on, guys, you can do better than that. You know, you can do better. We've got examples right here. So again, I think, for AAAS, throw your hat in the ring with Stand Up for Science or any of these other groups that help them. They want to align with you. They want to help in ways that you can't, because they're unencumbered, and
Hmm.
they can do things faster, and they don't have to go through committees, and they don't have to go to the board of directors, and they don't have to do all this stuff. They can make decisions in minutes that would take you weeks or months.
Hmm.
So help them would
Yeah.
be my plea. As for the oldsters looking for relevance through AI, stop it. You're on a leaky boat, and it's just springing holes every week.
Hmm.
And Ed Zitron's on the back trying to knock the engine off of it, and he's succeeding because the engine was full of, terrible, terrible fake fuel.
Seaweed
And that's right, the seaweed has gotten it.
and fishing nets. It's all.
Yeah. And then, the whole Maha incumbent group, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Casey Means. I
Yeah.
watched a little bit of the testimony, and I just, there's a whole list of things that have kind of the Maha movement seems like it's run out of steam.
Yeah, and I think
And I
they've they also need to appeal to their most radical core base, the ones
mhm,
who are upset that there are any vaccines still on the market today, the
right.
ones who are the I must feed my children raw milk, um, you know, and
To
how
Kid
dare
Rock
you
music.
to Kid Rock music, yeah. And so Casey Means, I was hoping she would become irrelevant in the time that it's taken to get from there to here, but I think she might be a ditch effort to just say, okay, well, we're going to put this lady, you know, in the public space so that we can, all the goop followers will have somebody to look up to.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then the rest of us can just ignore it. I
Yeah,
mean, I think a lot of people ignored the Surgeon Generals throughout the time, and they've done some really cool things. Who was the last one who talked about loneliness as being, you
right.
know, an
A
epidemic?
mental
And
health issue. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and so they usually kind of, take on a cause or two, but
Yeah, I
um,
think the chair I think the chair may be looking for some redemption,
uh-huh.
and I think he may sense political weakness on the Maha front because a lot of things like they had to, take back their various recommendations about various things. They had to shut down that study
Hmm.
in Guinea-Bissau. They had to do all sorts of, they've had to retreat from a lot of different stances recently. And so if he's trying to redeem his reputation as somebody who's, especially with the Surgeon General,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if she got voted down. So,
But at the same time, as so many like defend public health, and in some of the societies they're saying just ignore the CDC. Like we just
hmm
can't trust what comes out of there.
yeah,
Um, if they had a surgeon general that was somewhat credible, then that would be a mixed message. So now they can just say, just ignore everything health related that comes out of this
true,
government across the board.
true, true, true.
Who
It's
who
all a bunch of bandits.
who would be a better one that would want to come in and step into that mix and try to like play nicey nice, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wonder if there would be, just a empty chair for until some other things happen. I mean, there may be an unraveling coming.
Yeah. They could do a hologram of C. Everett Koop.
He would
That's
like that, from what I understand. I met
mhm.
him a couple of times. Yeah, I think he would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, have all his medals on his chest. So, all right. So we just wanted to talk about this. It's kind of a little bit of a difficult thing to tie down, but we need to understand that there are fresh forces coming into the public health space, trying
Hmm.
to re-energize it at a crucial period of time. And so the organizations that are in this space, I think, and I think you think, would do well if they were to really just drop all the pretense about inside, outside, old, new, whatever, and just make alliances. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Hmm.
Math. Let the people who are unencumbered by all of the things that you've become encumbered by over the years, let them rock and roll and get
Hmm.
it done. And then maybe over time, your organizations get a refresh too. And you get
Hmm.
some fresh friends and some fresh energy and more members. And I mean, strategically, I just can't see a downside.
No, I can't either. And also for these organizations that have publishing programs, there are things that you can do, and
hmm
recognizing that um, what we've talked about, the Maha people have this kind of glitter gutter media strategy in terms of
hmm
where they publish.
Right.
Um, they will publish a preprint and call it a landmark study on Zenodo or ResearchGate, and a
Right.
couple of them got taken down the other day, which I thought was hilarious.
It is.
They will shop around to all different types of journals, but then they will also, the brand names will publish an opinion piece in JAMA or NEJM or what have you
Or
to
nature.
to
Yeah.
try, or Nature to get legitimacy.
Right.
And so where you don't, as a publisher, you don't have to take a stance, but you can figure out where you want to participate or not.
Right. Yeah. And recognize that, they're using their incumbency to create, in a way, they are users, right? They
They're
will use
users.
you.
Yeah.
They will use preprints. They will use bad, pay to play journals. They will use prestigious titles. These people are media savvy. They know what they're doing. They are playing a game. You are probably being played, especially if they, I mean, a lot of times these the articles have like social media troll words in their headlines,
Hmm.
and it's like, how can you not see that this is you're being played? So yeah, watch yourselves.
Yeah,
That was
and
a Hill. What was the Hill Street Blues line? Since we're going back to ER days, because that was the other powerhouse, the police drama. Be
be
careful
safe
out
out
there.
there. Be
Be
safe
safe
out.
out there. Be
Yeah.
safe out there. Yeah.
And yeah, and just to the other distinction between the bad insurgents and the good ones is the bad ones are playing a short game.
Hmm.
And that's why they are hitting everything so hard and they've got these
And they're playing it for
rampant camps
themselves.
and they're playing it for themselves, where the ones who are trying to counteract them are looking beyond the horizon of
Hmm.
what's the future of scientists? What's the future of public health professionals and clinicians in this country? And so the ones who are fighting the good fight without a lot of funding are playing the long game that's in everybody's interest. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we hope that was helpful and a little bit informative. We're going to move on to something a little more concrete, discoveries of the week.
here we go.
All right. Joy, it's your turn to lead off discoveries of the week. So are you ready?
I am ready. Um, so the stuff you should know, folks, I think I've talked about them before.
Yeah.
Chuck and Josh, they always do a great
You're
job.
on a first name basis with them.
Oh, that's how they've talked to me for the
There you
last,
go. Well, there you go. Yeah, the
15
friends in our
years.
ears, right? Like we're
Yeah.
hoping to be to some people.
Yeah. So they do these they do long form kind of deep dives into different topics and it's very well researched. So the one that they put out the other day that caught my eye, they had been working on it for like a year.
Hmm.
So it's
Wow.
like each episode is like a little, mini book.
Hmm.
But so this week's, which I highly recommend, since we've got a lot of elite academic institutions in
In
the
play.
news,
Yeah.
connected with a number of nefarious people. This week they covered the murder of Jane Stanford.
Ooh,
And I didn't even know there was a Jane Stanford.
neither did
Uh,
I. Or that she
so,
was murdered.
or that she was murdered. Yeah,
Wow.
it's one of the great unsolved mysteries,
Well, quote unquote, right?
quote unquote. Yeah, we
Yeah.
still know exactly who did it. But so Jane Stanford was the wife of Leland Stanford Sr. She was
Hmm.
the co-founder of Stanford University. They had a son who died when he was a teenager, and that's why they put their railroad and gold prospecting money into Palo Alto and created the university in their dead son's honor.
Right,
And
because
so,
it's Leland Stanford Jr.
Junior, yeah,
University, right? Yeah.
yeah. And so then Jane outlived Leland, and
Hmm.
and she was apparently a bossy lady and didn't get along well with David Starr Jordan,
Hmm.
and who was their president. And so they tell the story a lot better than I would. So I would just recommend you listen to it. But there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of stuff that we talked
There's some
about in the
strychnine.
book. There's some eugenics, some strychnine, some uh, almost like and the fact that she died in Hawaii under strange circumstances, like had like echoes of like Martha Mitchell
Oh,
gaslighting, like she was like maybe kidnapped and murdered. I don't
right.
know. So,
Oh man.
so
Juicy.
anyway, well, there's been, money and shenanigans and wrongdoings going on at a lot of elite universities since they were founded. So
Yes,
this is
yes, that
another
sounds great.
one.
We'll put a link in the show notes to that because it sounds fantastic. I got to listen to it. All right, so mine is a book right here by Daniel Nadler, who was the founder of Open Evidence.
Oh.
And so I looked him up because Open Evidence it irks me, to be honest. It's kind of there's so many reasons, many of which I've written about, but others I haven't. But So I looked him up, and he's a financial planning or something like that, financial projection degree. So nothing in science or medicine, but he's a finance guy. But he also has some degree in poetry.
Hmm.
And so he had published a book called 100 Imagined Ancient Love Poems back in, finding the copyright statement here. Let's see, what year did it come out? I don't know where there's a copyright statement in here. Oh, here it is, 2016. And so I was just curious to see what his poems are like. And I'll put this into context. I'm an English major, and I tend to like poetry. I like long poems. I like short poems. I like poems in the New Yorker. I like some of them, at least. I don't mind modern poems. There's an editor of Any Jam whose son became a poet, and I got a book of his poems, and I really liked them. But I always look for that. To me, a poem is something that has a rhythm and has some twist or some interesting aspect to it that hits you in the gut,
Hmm.
right? Hits you in the soul. And none of these did that.
No.
They are, and I thought, 100 imagined ancient love poems. I thought it would be, like you would write, they would have some bearing on ancient love poems.
Now, he went to Stanford too,
He
right?
went to Harvard.
Oh, he went to Harvard.
He went to
Sorry.
Harvard. Yes,
Okay.
a different,
Yeah. I
different
was
sweatshirt I
wondering
have to
if,
throw away.
yeah, I was just wondering if there was like a Rene Girard, or is there an approach to the classics that made him think that he should be reimagining ancient love poems? Or
I don't know that there's, I mean, they're all like super short. I mean, the most is probably 12 lines long. A lot of them are like 3 or 4 lines long. They just, I, they're not for me. I got no
Mhm.
rhythm out of them. Nothing grabbed me. I got nothing except one I sent you that made me laugh because it read like he had woken up in the middle of the night to realize he'd wet the bed.
I couldn't read it another way. I think you're absolutely right. I was like, I tried. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyhow, trying to understand Daniel Nadler, I still don't. And but
I think
I
I
was kind
think
of like maybe if his poems are great, I'll become a big fan. But that didn't
well,
happen.
even if his poems were great, it's a crappy product, and they
Yeah,
shouldn't.
open evidence doesn't. Yeah, but
It,
at least then I don't know. I was looking for something where it's like how can I where's a path into liking what this guy does, and I haven't found it yet. So that was my discovery of the week is that Daniel Nadler writes poems that I don't like. So
well, you know what, Ken? I think that's very gracious of you to, and like we do every time we're trying to understand something that at face value we don't agree with, you look into it, right?
yeah,
You
right,
look around the corner saying, well, who's paying for it? Or why are they doing it? Or, what's their motivation?
right,
And the fact that you paid US American dollars to read his book
yeah.
is,
Well,
you know, the right thing to
trying
do.
to have integrity. So, and I would have loved to have said, I may not like open evidence, but these poems, whoa,
Yeah.
can't do it,
Cash out
unfortunately.
soon and write the next batch.
That's right. So
Yeah.
anyhow, all right. So that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our friends at Provoke the Truth for the music. He has new T-shirts on his merch store. So, and I saw
Oh,
one
awesome.
yesterday. Oh, it's nice. It's nice. If you have topics you want us to cover, please email us at disruptedscience@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also keep up with developments at the Geyser, where you can subscribe to support our efforts. We signed off on the final galleys of our book this morning, and so
Yep.
it's off it goes. And
Pencils
that's the
down.
pencils down, all scrubbing done.
Hmm.
And hopefully it's nice and shiny when you get it. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.